For decades, I kept my family's darkest truth hidden to protect the people I loved. But when that truth came for me, I learned what loyalty really costs. People think I live a quiet, respectable life. I run a small insurance office in upstate New York, mow my lawn every Sunday morning, and wave at neighbors like I actually enjoy small talk. My wife, Karen, hosts book club every other Thursday. We have two grown daughters, Emily and Claire, both married, both living in town. We do Sunday dinners, smile and family photos, and drop off banana bread to the new neighbors like we are straight out of a catalog. From the outside, it looks nice. But nice is just a cover. Beneath that front porch politeness and carefully trimmed hedges is a truth I have kept buried for over 30 years. Something that, if it ever got out, would change the way everyone sees me. Not just me, either. My whole damn family. And no, I am not talking about some minor thing. Not like an affair or a secret stash of money. This secret is older than my marriage. It reaches back to a night I have tried to forget, tied to a name I swore I would never speak again. A name that used to echo down my childhood hallway like thunder. My father's name. Everyone in this town remembers Richard Hallbrook as a respected veteran, a quiet man who worked in construction and donated to the church fund every Christmas. After he passed, folks said things like, he was a pillar of this community, or you could always count on Rich. They never knew the real story. They never saw the nights he came home late, shirt soaked in sweat, eyes red, not from exhaustion, but from the things he had done and could not forget. Or worse, the things he never wanted to. Karen knows bits and pieces. I told her once, back when we were still just dating, that my father had a temper and that we were not close. That was enough for her. She never pushed. I built my life around that silence. Every room in my house is painted in the color of quiet compromise. I keep my past tucked away like an old photograph I never want to look at again. No one asks. No one knows. And that is how I have kept it. But lately, there have been cracks. Last week, Claire brought over an old family album she found in our basement, covered in dust. She said Emily wanted to scan some of the photos for a genealogy project. I smiled and nodded, pretending it was fine. But when she handed me that book and I saw the edge of a yellowed envelope sticking out, I felt my chest tighten. I thought I had burned all of it. That envelope, I recognized it right away. It was from my father. Not the kind he sent on birthdays or holidays. This one was different. I remember the handwriting. I remember what it said. And now it is back. Claire asked me if I wanted to go through it together. I told her I was tired, that we would do it another time. But I know I will not. Because if she opens that envelope, if she reads what is inside, then it is all over. And for the first time in years, I do not know if I can stop what is coming. I could not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that envelope, its frayed edge poking out from the back of the photo album like it had been waiting for this exact moment to resurface. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it creak with every slow rotation. Karen shifted beside me, breathing deep and steady, completely unaware that the world I had built around us was starting to shake loose. I got out of bed around 3 in the morning and crept down to the basement. The album was still there, sitting on the corner of the old card table where Claire had left it. I ran my hand over the dusty cover and opened it. Photos spilled out, grainy shots from camping trips, birthdays, old vacations that I barely remembered. But all I cared about was the envelope. It was still tucked between 2 pages. I slid it out, careful not to make a sound. My name was written on the front in my father's handwriting. Michael. Just that. No son, no love, no date. Just Michael. My hands were shaking as I flipped it over. It was already open. Empty. The letter, whatever had been inside, was gone. I sat there in the cold basement, staring at that damn envelope like it might give me an answer if I looked hard enough. But I already knew what this meant. Someone had read it. I thought back to Claire. She had been acting strange when she dropped off the album. Too cheerful, too eager. Emily had texted earlier that week, asking if I remembered anything unusual about our family history. She said it was for her daughter's school project, but something about the question felt off. Too specific. I had always been careful. The documents, the newspaper clippings, even the hospital report, I had burned them all in the fire pit behind the garage more than 20 years ago. Or so I thought. But if someone had gotten to that letter before I did, they might know everything. And here is the thing about secrets. They rot in silence, but they explode in exposure. The next morning, I acted normal. Made breakfast. Kissed Karen on the cheek. I even called Emily and asked about the school project, just to keep up appearances. She laughed and said it was nothing serious, just a fun assignment. But her voice caught for a split second, like she was lying. That was when I knew I was not the only one protecting this secret anymore. And if they were digging, they were close. Too close. Because the letter was not the only thing my father left behind. And now I had no idea what else might come crawling out of the dark. I did not have to wait long for the next blow. It came 3 days later, wrapped in politeness and wearing a clean pair of brown leather shoes. I was in the middle of closing up the office, printing reports, locking the drawer with our cash deposits, when I heard the chime from the front door. I almost ignored it. We were already 5 minutes past closing. He stepped in like he belonged there. Early 50s, maybe older. Trim, neat beard. Wore a light gray coat that somehow looked expensive without showing off. He smiled, but it was not the kind that reached his eyes. "Mr. Holbrook?" he asked. I nodded, already uneasy. He extended a hand. "Name's Donovan. Just passing through town. Wondered if I could ask you something about your father." Right there, every muscle in my body tightened. I had not heard a stranger say my father's name out loud in decades. Not in this town. Not with that voice. Calm, curious, almost friendly. I forced a smile. "He passed away a long time ago." Donovan nodded. "I know. That's why I'm here." I do not know why, but I lied. Said I had a meeting, said I was late to a dinner. He chuckled and held up both hands like I had spooked easy. "No worries, sir. I'll come back another time." Then he slipped something onto the counter before leaving, a small business card. But not for a business. No logo. Just a name, a phone number, and a town 2 states over I had not thought about since I was 17. I stared at it for a long time after he left. The name of the town was Brentford. And Brentford was where the fire happened. You would not find it in any official record now, not under our name, at least. It had been wiped clean, reclassified, filed under a different heading. But I remembered every detail. The smoke, the screaming, the way my father stood there in the yard, blood on his boots, eyes locked on me like he was daring me to speak. He never said it outright, but I always knew that night was no accident. And now some man from Brentford was walking into my life like it was just another day. That night, I drove around town aimlessly for over an hour. Karen thought I had gone out for groceries. I just needed space. I parked near the lake where the old bridge crosses over to the woods and stared at my reflection in the water until the sky turned black. All these years, I believed the secret had died with my father. I thought I had kept it buried deep enough. But now I had proof. Someone else remembered, and they were coming for answers. The worst part about memory is not the things you forget. It is the things you remember too clearly. Brentford was not a place we ever talked about after we left. In fact, I do not think my mother ever said the town's name again once we settled here. She just called it back then, or before everything changed. I was 17 the last time I stood in that place. And it was not by choice. We moved in the middle of the night, no warning, no goodbye. Just a single packed van and a promise from my father that if I told anyone what I saw, I would end up exactly like them. He never said who them was. He did not have to. I saw enough. But I still remember the sound. The fire started around 2 in the morning. I woke up to the smell, thick, sweet, and sharp, like burning plastic and old wood soaked in gasoline. My bedroom lit up in orange flashes through the window. I thought the neighbor's house was on fire. I ran to the front yard barefoot, heart pounding in my ears. But it was not the neighbor's house. It was the old shed behind our property, the one my father always kept locked. The one he told me never to go near. And standing in front of it, outlined by flame, was him, holding a shovel. No shirt, just jeans and boots. His chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face despite the freezing air. I remember asking if we should call someone. He turned toward me, slowly. The look on his face was not fear, not even panic. It was calm. That was the scariest part. "You did not see anything," he said. "You went to bed early. You slept through the night." He said it once, then again, and again, until it felt like a prayer or a command I was supposed to obey. And I did, because deep down, I already knew something worse than fire had happened in that shed. My mother never questioned it. She packed what little we had and left with him that same night. She told me not to ask questions. She said, "Your father did what he had to do." That line has haunted me for most of my life. I never found out who or what had been in that shed. All I know is the police never showed up. No news ever ran a story. And within 48 hours, our house was gone. Our name was changed, and the town of Brentford became something we all pretended never existed. Until now. Donovan's card was still in my coat pocket, burning a hole through my thoughts. I wanted to throw it in the trash. I wanted to burn it. But I could not stop looking at it. Because if he knew what happened that night, then the life I built here was about to collapse. That evening, just as I was about to stash the card away for good, Karen walked into the room, holding something in her hand. It was the envelope, the one from the album. "You want to explain this?" she asked. I stood there like my feet were nailed to the floor. Karen held the envelope between two fingers, careful like it might stain her skin. She did not look angry. Not yet. Just confused. Worried. Her eyes scanned my face, waiting for me to blink, to explain, to lie, something. I swallowed hard and tried to play dumb. Said I did not recognize it. Said maybe it was one of my dad's old insurance documents. She raised an eyebrow. "There is no document," she said, voice flat. "Just this envelope." And a single word scribbled inside. My heart thudded in my chest. She pulled out a torn piece of yellowed paper and handed it to me. Folded in half. No date, no signature. Just 3 words written in my father's slanted handwriting. "He knows everything." I felt the blood drain from my face. Karen stepped back a little, like my silence had given her all the answers she needed. "Who's he, Mike?" she asked. "And what exactly does he know?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, I did not know. My father had a way of saying things that could mean 3 different things at once. And usually, none of them were good. I sat down hard on the edge of the coffee table, the old wood groaning beneath my weight. Karen stood over me, arms crossed, waiting. Finally, I said the only thing that felt honest. "I think someone's looking into Brentford." Her face changed at that. I could see something shift in her, like recognition. Like maybe that name had not been buried as deep as I thought. "Brentford," she repeated, slowly. "That was where you lived before we met, right? You told me it was just a small town, nothing special." "It was," I said, "until it wasn't." She sat across from me, the envelope now resting between us like a bomb no one wanted to touch. "You going to tell me what happened?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not yet." And then I saw it. A flicker in her eyes. Like maybe she already knew more than she was letting on. Before I could ask, her phone buzzed. She looked down, then back at me, frowning. "It's Emily," she said. "She says she found something weird in the town records for Brentford. Something she thinks we need to see." I took the phone from her hand and stared at the screen. Emily had sent a single photo. It was an old newspaper clipping. And there, in black and white, was a photo of my father, standing in front of a burned-down shed. I had not seen that photo in over 30 years. The newspaper clipping Emily sent was old, faded, scanned crooked, but unmistakable. There was my father, standing in front of a smoking pile of rubble. Same jeans, same boots, same dead-eyed stare I had known too well. The article was short, maybe 2 paragraphs at most. But one sentence stood out like a knife pressed to my throat. Unidentified human remains were discovered in the debris, but no charges were filed. Emily had included a caption of her own. "Dad, what the hell is this?" I stared at those words like they might rewrite themselves. Karen leaned in close, reading over my shoulder. "You told me there was no fire," she whispered. I could not meet her eyes. I had told her Brentford was forgettable, that we left because of money, or work, or some vague family drama. She never questioned it, probably because I never gave her reason to. Until now. "You need to talk to her," Karen said, "before she keeps digging and finds something you can't take back." That hit harder than she knew, because she was already too late. I called Emily. She picked up on the first ring. "Dad," she said, no greeting, no warmth. "Why is Grandpa in a newspaper article about a dead body?" I told her I did not have answers, that the fire was an accident, that my father had nothing to do with it. Even as I said it, I could hear how hollow it sounded. Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she asked something I had not expected. "Was that the same year he disappeared for a while?" That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" I asked. She hesitated. "When I was maybe 8 or 9, Mom told me Grandpa had gone away for a few years before I was born. She said it was military-related, but I looked it up once. His service ended long before that." I looked over at Karen. She was frozen. Emily kept going. "And now this article. It says the fire happened in '89. You moved here in '90. So what happened in between?" I felt like the walls were closing in. My whole life I had told myself silence was loyalty, that protecting my father's reputation, even after death, meant protecting my own kids from the truth. But maybe that was never protection. Maybe that was just cowardice. Emily's voice dropped lower, like she was trying to steady herself. "Dad," she said, "did he kill someone?" I did not answer. I could not. Not yet. It was well past midnight when I drove back to the office. I told Karen I needed air, that I had to clear my head. But the truth was, I needed to see that envelope again. The one someone had slid under the door earlier that evening, right after Emily's call. I had not opened it. Something about the weight of it felt wrong, like whatever was inside would undo me in a way nothing else had. I parked behind the building, where the cameras could not see me. The air was cold, sharp with the first bite of fall. I unlocked the back door, stepped into the dark hallway, and locked it behind me. The envelope was sitting on my desk, untouched. No stamp, no return address. Just my name, printed in neat black ink. I took a breath, sat down, and opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Glossy, fresh, not aged like the newspaper clipping. Someone had reprinted this recently. The photo showed a clearing behind the Brentford house. The burned shed was just out of frame, and in the center of it all stood two people. One of them was my father. The other was me, 17 years old, wearing a torn jacket and muddy sneakers. Face pale, eyes locked on something out of frame. And my hand was covered in blood. My breath caught in my throat. I did not remember this. I remembered the fire. I remembered the shed. But I had always told myself I showed up after it started. That I saw my father standing there and ran for help. That I had nothing to do with it. But this photo, this damn photo, said otherwise. I stared at it until my hands started shaking. If this was real, then I had lied to myself for over 30 years. And maybe not just to myself. The room suddenly felt smaller. The walls closer. I checked the envelope again, searching for more, anything that could explain where this came from. But all I found was a scrap of notepad paper, folded once. Truth always finds its way home. No signature, no threat, just that one line. I sat there for a long time, heart pounding, trying to piece together the impossible. Because either someone had faked this, or I had buried more than just a secret. I had buried a memory, and now it was coming back to life. Karen did not say a word when I walked in. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled to her elbows like she had been waiting for hours. On the table in front of her was the photo. The photo, the same one that had been slipped under my office door hours earlier. She looked up at me, her face unreadable. "How long have you known?" she asked. Her voice was flat. Not angry, not panicked, just tired. Like this moment had been circling for years and finally landed. I did not answer right away. I pulled out a chair across from her, sat down, and stared at the grain of the wood between us. I could feel the picture without looking at it, burned into the back of my eyelids now. "I thought I showed up after the fire," I said quietly. I always thought I just saw the end of it. I never remembered being that close." Karen slid the photo toward me. "You were right next to it, Mike. You were practically standing in the middle of it." I nodded. "That is what scares me." She leaned forward. "Do you think you helped him?" The question hit harder than I expected. I had spent most of my adult life convincing myself I had nothing to do with it. That the fire, the body, the sudden move, all of it was my father's doing. He was the violent one, the cold one, the man who never flinched, never apologized. But this photo, it said something else. It said maybe I was not just a witness. Maybe I was part of it. "I do not know," I whispered. Karen looked away, her jaw clenched. "I need to understand," she said. "Not just for me. For the girls. For what comes next." That line stopped me cold. "What comes next?" I asked. She stood up and walked to the counter. Picked up a second envelope. "This came in the mail today. No return address. Just my name." She handed it to me, and I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a printed copy of the same newspaper article Emily had found. But this one had something extra. 2 lines typed across the bottom in bold, black font. "He lied to all of you. The body was never identified, until now." Karen's voice was barely above a whisper. "They found out who it was, Mike. They know." My mind went blank. The fire, the bones, the body in the shed that no one claimed. They had figured it out. And whoever sent this letter wanted me to know the secret was no longer mine to carry. I watched the cruiser through the window like it was part of a movie I could not pause. The engine idled for a few seconds. Then the door opened, and a uniformed officer stepped out, early 40s, stocky, with that quiet confidence small-town cops wear like armor. He adjusted his belt and took one slow step toward our porch. Karen stood behind me, silent. She had not spoken a word since last night. When the knock came, it was soft, almost polite, as if the truth arriving at your door needed an invitation. I opened it. "Mr. Holbrook?" he asked. I nodded. "My name's Officer Jennings. I am here because we received a call regarding a potential connection between you and an unsolved death in Brentford back in 1989. He did not even blink when he said it. I felt the blood drain from my face. "From who?" He pulled a small notepad from his jacket and read without emotion. "Anonymous tip. But we also got a follow-up call from your daughter, Emily Carver. She said she believes her father may have knowledge of a crime that was never properly investigated." I felt something crack inside me. Emily. She was the one who called. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to shout, to defend myself, to say she did not understand what she was doing. But I could not. Because maybe she did. Officer Jennings looked past me, spotted Karen, and nodded politely. "I am not here to arrest you, sir. Not yet. But I am asking you to come down to the station. Talk to us. You are not under suspicion. Yet. But things have changed in Brentford. We have new evidence. New DNA results. The family of the victim has been notified." I stood there, frozen. Victim. That word hit harder than anything else. I turned back toward Karen. She did not look surprised. Just sad. Like a part of her had already let go. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. In the cruiser, I stared out the window as the town rolled past. The diner. The church. The post office where I once mailed my college applications. All of it looked smaller now, like it was shrinking in my rear view. At the station, they offered me coffee. I declined. They asked about the fire, the photo, the letter, my father's state of mind. And somewhere in there, I stopped pretending. I told them what I remembered. Told them about the shed, the smell, the way my father had warned me to forget everything. I even told them I was not sure if I helped him that night, or just stood there frozen. Jennings listened without reacting. Then he leaned forward and slid a manila folder across the table. "We found this," he said. "Thought you should see it." Inside was a photo of a young man, maybe late 20s. Brown hair, scruffy beard. Beneath it, a name. Thomas J. Keegan. The man in the shed. The man whose body we had never identified, until now. And the worst part? I remembered him. Thomas J. Keegan. The name was like a ghost kicking down the door. I had not heard it in over 30 years, not since the night my father told me to forget he ever existed. But seeing his face again, right there in the photo, frozen in time, brought everything back. The blood on my hands, the screaming, the secret, and the lie I told myself to survive. Thomas was not my biological brother. Not legally, but he might as well have been. My father had taken him in when he was a teenager, one of those boys from the system, programs that made him look generous in the community's eyes. He let him stay in the trailer behind our house, put him to work on construction jobs, introduced him to people at church. But behind closed doors, it was different. Thomas saw things he should not have. My father's temper, his fists, his threats. And one night, he tried to leave. That was the night of the fire. What I remembered, the parts one had let myself remember, were true, but incomplete. I had woken to yelling. I ran out back. The shed door was open, and my father had Thomas by the collar, dragging him across the floor. There was blood, a lot of it. My father was screaming something about betrayal, about loyalty. Then he saw me, and something in him snapped. He tossed Thomas aside like garbage and pointed at me. "Help me or lose everything." That was what he said. I froze. I did not move. I did not speak. But I did not run either. I watched him pour the gas. I watched him strike the match. And when the fire lit up the night sky, I did nothing. I let it happen. Maybe I believed that keeping quiet made me innocent. That silence was not the same as guilt. But now I know better. At the station, I told Officer Jennings everything. Not just about that night, but about the years after. The nightmares. The way I flinched whenever someone said Brentford. The sick feeling I got every time someone mentioned loyalty like it was supposed to be a virtue. When I was done, he nodded slowly. "You are not being charged," he said. "The statute's complicated. Your testimony helps. And the investigation is focused on Richard Holbrook's actions, not yours." But it did not feel like freedom. It felt like a funeral. When I walked out of that station, the air was cold, clean. For the first time in my life, I did not feel like I was carrying someone else's sins on my back. I got home around sunset. Karen was in the backyard, sitting on the porch steps with a blanket over her lap. She looked at me, not with pity, not with anger, just tired eyes, but honest ones. I know who Thomas was now, she said. I sat beside her and looked out at the yard. You could have told me, she added. Years ago. I nodded. I thought hiding it protected everyone. I thought silence was loyalty. Karen was quiet for a long moment. It never is, she finally said. It just makes liars out of the people who deserve peace. The next day, I called Emily. She did not say much. But before we hung up, she said this. I still love you, Dad. But I needed to know. And maybe that was the hardest part. Not being hated, but being seen. For the first time in my life, I am not pretending to be the perfect husband, or the flawless father, or the upstanding man who built a respectable life. I am just a man who kept a secret to protect a lie. And now, that lie is gone. So maybe, now I can finally breathe.